Greetings from Australia. Welcome back to our channel. My name is Ruth and I am an Australian immigration law practitioner. And today I would like to share with you 7 things you must do to obtain an Australian temporary work visa, in particular subclass 482. Now, please do not treat the information in this video as legal or migration advice because each case is assessed on a case-by-case basis. But we trust that the contents in this video will provide you with a brief overview as to what you need to look out for if you're looking for a work visa in Australia. So let's get started. What are the 7 things you must do to obtain an Australian temporary work visa subclass 482? Well, first of all, you need to find a sponsor. So that is one of the easiest, but also can be one of the most challenging tasks. But if you find a sponsor who is willing and able to sponsor you, then you can actually go forward with a work visa, and it's a pretty good pathway in my view. So the sponsor generally will have to be an organization or a business, and they have to show that they've got a genuine need to employ you. So you sort of have to match your skills and your qualification to the business. And for example, if I'm applying for a job and I want to be sponsored in a place where people fix cars, okay? And they have, let's say, 10 employees in total. But my qualification is I've got a legal background, so I've got a law degree. But the thing is, I don't think I can actually get the visa because it doesn't match with the nature of the business. Whereas if you're a mechanic and you're qualified and they actually fix cars and they need to hire you, so that would be a match, okay? So it's so important that when you're seeking a sponsor, it is someone who is closely aligned with your line of occupation, skills and experience, okay? So that's step number 1, find a sponsor. How do you find a sponsor? Well, it depends. You can go through recruitment agencies, you can contact the employers directly and go and seek, or Indeed, or Job Active. So these are some of the different sites that are available in Australia where people are seeking for workers. So you can contact them directly and impress them with your resume. But at the same time, be honest with them and say, hey, I am looking for somebody who is willing and able to sponsor me. Will you be interested? And usually if they say, yeah, we're interested, but we don't know much about it. So what happens is our clients will actually just pass on our contact details. They'll give us a call and we will run through the process with them and explain how it works. And if they're agreeable, then you can move forward with your work visa case. So that's the first thing, find a sponsor. Very, very important. The second thing is your employer will have to go ahead then and lodge a sponsorship application, okay? And depending on whether the employer wants to do it themselves or they want to hire an agent, we usually assist with that process. Basically, they need to show that they are legally operating in Australia, they've been paying their taxes, they show their profit and loss statement, and also a brief explanation as to why they want to hire, someone from overseas. And so usually to say that if they have been struggling to find Australians to fill the position, that should suffice under the sponsorship process. And so that brings us to the third thing. The third thing that you must do, or rather your employer must do, to get you the visa is that they will need to nominate you. So what that means is now they're saying that they're specifically requesting immigration to hire an overseas worker. And it's specifically they would like to nominate you as the worker, that you are the right person for them. But with that, they have to meet the labor market testing requirement. So what is the labor market testing requirement? Now, this is one of the most important criteria when it comes to a successful nomination, because if you fail that, the whole application goes out the window, okay? So what it really means is that the employer has provided Australian citizens, permanent residents, and eligible New Zealanders to fill the position. So really, they need to give the first opportunity to Australians to work for them. And if they cannot find Australians to fill the position, then they are now offering, they're saying, well, we've got no choice. Our hands are tied. We need somebody to run the business. We need somebody to maintain the business so we can grow the business. So if they can show that, then they will meet the labor market testing requirement. So usually they will need to show that they've been advertising for a minimum of 28 days within the last 4 months. There are specific platforms that are accepted by immigration, whereas there are other platforms that are not accepted by immigration. So if you found a sponsor, and don't be afraid to ask your sponsor, who is your prospective employer, just ask them, hey, have you guys done this before? And if they say, yeah, we've done it 5 years ago, then definitely ask them to contact like an agent or an immigration lawyer, or they can contact us. Because the laws have changed tremendously. Now, if they've not done it before, then definitely get them to talk to somebody, a professional, because the requirements are so stringent that if they do not meet certain requirements, sometimes it could just be one word, a technical thing. Then the whole application will be refused, which can also mean that you don't get your visa. In some cases, they can try again, but it's always good to get it right the first time, okay? So labor market testing, very, very, very important. The fourth thing you must do for an Australian temporary work visa is your employer has to ensure that they meet, or rather they offer you annual market salary rate. Now, it sounds simple on the outset in the sense that, they can just offer me X amount of dollar and that's gonna meet the salary rate. But what some of the employers don't understand is that immigration now requires employers to provide proof as to where they got the data from. So there are specific websites, specific searches that the employers will need to do to prove that they're actually paying you a market salary rate. And I think this is a wonderful thing for workers, because the Australian government wants to make sure that you're not being exploited. So for example, if an Australian is getting paid $20 an hour, then they don't want you to get paid $2 an hour. They want to make sure that you can pay your rent, you can feed your kids, and etc. So I think that's a really good thing that the Australian government has put in place. I really applaud them for that. I think, even for myself as an Australian citizen, I feel very blessed, because I feel like there's such equality in Australia and we're really, really looked after. So the employer will have to meet the annual market salary rate requirement. It's very specific. So if they haven't done it before, make sure they speak to an agent or get somebody to take over the application. If they need us to help, just feel free to give them our contact details. The fifth thing you must do for an Australian temporary work visa, subclass 482, is your employer must show that there's a genuine need for you to work in their business, okay? So as I mentioned earlier, if the employer has a business whereby they service cars, they may not need somebody like me with a law degree. Like, what's the point of having a legal person in the service, unless of course they are like a huge organization and they're hiring a legal advisor, managing contracts, millions of dollars of contracts. So that's different. But yeah, so they must show a genuine need for your position. The sixth thing you must do for an Australian temporary visa is when it is time for you to apply for the visa. So basically, you can go ahead and apply for your visa after your employer has lodged the sponsorship and nomination. I actually made another video on the 3 steps that you must know for a sponsored visa. So you can check that out. But generally, before you apply for your visa, you need to make sure that you meet the skills requirement. So this is very, very important because you don't want your employees to have spent all the money, right? And then you get to your visa state and then you go, oh my goodness, I didn't actually meet these requirements. So it's not gonna go down well with the employer. So you wanna check out and make sure that you've met the requirements for your visa before going forward to approach an employer. So the skills requirement, depending on your occupation, usually they will require some sort of qualification and experience. In some cases, you can substitute experience only for qualification, but it really depends on the occupation. So if you need help with them, just drop us an email and we can have a look and see if you meet the skills requirement. Or if you need to go through a skills assessment, which is a completely different process whereby you have to show that you've applied to a particular assessing authority and they've looked at all your qualifications, all your work experience, and they've said that, okay, well, this person actually meets Australia's standard and produce a certificate. So not all occupations require that, but some of them do. So just need to be careful. If you do need that, you might want to get it started as soon as possible because some will take 3 or even 6 months for you to accomplish that. Some maybe just 10 days. So, but you want to get that started early. Also the experience requirement. Usually you have to show a minimum of 2 years of experience for the 482 visa. And also, finally, number 7, the 7th thing you must do for an Australian temporary work visa is to meet the English test. So the English test is very, very important because you see, if the Australian government is going to give us a visa, they expect us to be able to communicate, with our employer, etc. So this is so important. The requirements are generally quite achievable. It's not like a crazy high score. As long as you meet the requirement, you'll be fine. But in some cases, you can get an exemption from the English test. For example, if you studied in anything above secondary education for a minimum of 5 years, where most of the education were delivered in English, then potentially you can be exempted from doing an English test, which means you don't actually have to go for an English test, but you need to prove that you actually studied in those places and have confirmation letters from the education providers. In some cases, if you hold a USA, UK, Canadian, Ireland, and New Zealand passport, then you don't have to meet the English requirement because you'll be exempted because that's your mother tongue anyways. So to summarize, the 7 things that you must do for an Australian temporary work visa, subclass 482 is number 1, find a sponsor. Number 2, your sponsor is to submit a sponsorship application and make sure they've got all the documents right. Number 3, your sponsor will then go ahead and nominate you, and with that they have to meet the labour market testing requirement. Number 4, they have to meet the annual market salary requirement, PAYU market salary rate. Number 5, they need to show that there's a genuine need for your position. Number 6, when you're ready to lodge your visa, you need to make sure, even before all of these, that you meet the skill and the experience requirement. Number 7, you need to make sure that you meet the English requirement. And on top of that, there are other requirements such as health requirement, health examination, character requirements. So again, you need to have a pretty good record to meet the public interest criteria requirement. So I hope that the contents of this video provide you with a brief overview as to what immigration looks at when it comes to a temporary work visa. Again, please do not treat the contents of this video as legal or migration advice, because each case is different. If you need help with your specific visa matter, please feel free to drop us an email below or submit a form on the website, and we would be very happy to assist you. But otherwise, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video, and we wish you the very best in your future endeavors.